Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. We're going to take just a couple of seconds to let others sign on to the Zoom, and then we'll get started. We've got more people signing on, so just 30 more seconds. Why don't we get started? I want to be respectful of everyone's time. My name is Patricia Wilson-Aden, and I am the president of the Greater Philadelphia Cultural Alliance. And I'm so grateful for you taking the time from your busy schedules to join us today. We know that your schedules are full, everyone's busy, and your presence on this call really reflects how deeply you care about the future of arts and culture in Pennsylvania. We've convened this virtual town hall because we're facing dramatic and concerning changes to Pennsylvania creative industries, formerly known as Pennsylvania Council on the Arts. And these changes represent a significant departure from decades of community-based, equity-centered investment across the Commonwealth. These shifts have real implications for artists, cultural organizations, and the communities we collectively serve. So our goal today is to share what we know, outline what's changing, and begin discussions about what this means for our region and our sector. So before we begin, I'd like to introduce Stephanie Lerner, who is the Cultural Alliance's Director of Grants Programs. Stephanie's going to co-lead today's town hall. And then, of course, we should take some time for a few quick housekeeping notes before we begin. This session is being recorded so we can share it with others who were unable to attend. We're going to ask everyone to please remain muted unless called upon, and we'll be actively monitoring the chat throughout the presentation to capture your questions and comments, and we're also going to be sharing some important links in the chat as well. So thank you again. We've got a good gathering, so let's get started. Haley, can I have the next slide, please? Let's set the table here. As we move into today's conversation, we want to be clear. We believe that this is a moment of activism. We're sharing this information not simply to inform you, but to collectively mobilize around the Commonwealth's arts funding policies and the programs that shape our cultural ecosystem. The decisions being made by Pennsylvania Creative Industries will certainly impact our work in the coming months and could define access, equity, and sustainability for years to come. I also want to clarify that when we talk about the cultural ecosystem, we mean that expansively and inclusively. We're talking about nonprofit organizations and groups of all sizes, individual artists, the people who work with these organizations, teaching artists, culture bearers, administrators, and culture workers across disciplines and across communities. The arts and humanities are interconnected, and so are the people who power them. To that end, we want this to be an interactive space. We're actively monitoring the chat, and we encourage you to use it to share comments, reactions, and questions. We're going to preserve the chat transcript and use your input to inform ongoing advocacy and strategy. Next slide, please. So Let's begin by level setting. It's important for us all to have a shared understanding of the context of states' arts funding in Pennsylvania. Haley, next slide, please. On this slide, you'll see a map illustrating the per capita state funding for arts, comparing Pennsylvania to our neighboring states. Pennsylvania currently ranks in the lower tier nationally in arts funding per capita, despite being consistently recognized as one of the most vibrant art states in the country. Pennsylvania's creative sector employs over 176,000 workers, more than all of our neighboring states except
Amanda,
New
how are
York.
you?
This
Good.
disconnect.
Well,
Can I ask everyone to put themselves on mute, please? So I'm going to keep going. But I want to talk about this disconnect between our contribution to the state's economy and workforce versus the state's investment in the creative sector. This is an important point. Our creative sector delivers strong economic, educational, and civic impact, but the level of public investment has not kept pace. When public funding per resident remains low, especially in a large, diverse state like ours, it places added pressure on small and mid-sized nonprofit organizations, especially for chronically scarce funds to support operations. This broader funding context is critical as we consider the structural changes that are now underway. Next slide. I'm going to give you a minute to take in this particular slide. What we're trying to illustrate is that if you look back to 2018, we can see the changes in PA creative industries funding priorities. This did not emerge overnight. This has been an ongoing progressive trend. Over the past several years, funding has increasingly shifted from economic development oriented, shifted toward economic development oriented initiatives, while traditional grant programs supporting nonprofit arts organizations, community-based groups, and teaching artists has seen reductions or consolidations. So as the chart illustrates, that blue line, you see declining over time, and you see the orange line increasing over time. At the same time, the state's arts budget has remained largely flat with no adjustments for inflation. That means that fewer dollars are being distributed across fewer programs and in many cases through more restrictive funding mechanisms. Taken together, these trends show a gradual reorientation of priorities, moving away from decentralized, community-based investment models and towards centralized economic development framing. The concern many in the field are raising is not about efficiency or innovation. This is about balance. The arts ecosystem depends on a mix of economic vitality, cultural preservation, education, and community engagement. When dollars shift disproportionately towards one dimension, especially without increasing the overall funding pool, it can destabilize the organizations that they're meant to serve and disrupt the valuable work of artists who form the foundation of our arts ecosystem. Now I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie to talk about Pennsylvania Creative Industries Partnership Program.
Hi.
Stephanie?
Hi, everyone. Thank you. So I want to just take a moment to walk through the partnerships and grant programs that are the existing structure before we get into talking about what changes are happening. So the map on the screen is the combined partnership map of three grant programs. Arts in Education, Folk and Traditional Arts, and the PA Partners in the Arts. The state is divided into 14 regions. Each region may have a different partner acting as the partner organization for each of these three grant programs. Uh, you might have the same organization acting as the partner for all three, depending on the region. We are Region 6, of course, in southeastern PA, and we have three different organizations who serve as these three different partners. We will actually be hearing from Philadelphia Arts and Education Partnership and Philadelphia Folklore Project in a few moments, but I wanted to just name that those are the partners for the respective arts and education and folk and traditional arts grant programs. And then just also note that in the southeastern PA Region 6, we do represent the five counties of southeastern PA. And the Cultural Alliance serves as the PA Partners in the Arts organization. And that is the vehicle that has let the Cultural Alliance serve as regional grant maker for the Creative Sector Flex Fund and the Creative Entrepreneur Accelerator Grant. In the past, there have been grants such as the Program Stream and Project Stream. And you can go to the next slide, Haley. The current state of funding in the region for the PA Partners or PPA, we have $400,000 annually through the Creative Sector Flex Fund, as well as $150,000 for the Creative Entrepreneur Accelerator grants. In the arts and education partnership, our region gets 75,000 for artist residencies. And then folk and traditional arts, the amount varies a little bit more, but it is approximately 60,000 per year for apprenticeships. There are two other grant programs that the council administers directly themselves. One is Preserving Diverse Cultures. Annually, that is about 400,000 in funding. And then the other is AOAP, which is Arts Organizations and Arts Programs. And there's a corresponding entry track, which combined is about 1.5 million. So that one makes up the bulk of state grant dollars going to our region. And that is the grant program for organizations with budgets over 200,000. So now I'm going to turn it back to Patty to review some of the changes happening.
Thank you, Stephanie. So on this slide, we want to ground us in PCI's recent changes. The Pennsylvania Council on the Arts is now operating as Pennsylvania Creative Industries. I'm going to say PCI, with a new strategic framework guiding its direction. It's our understanding that the grant restructuring and program eliminations that we've outlined stem directly from this new strategic direction. We want to be clear. The concern many of us are expressing is not only about what is included in this new framework, but it's about what appears to be left out. The new mission emphasizes creative industries, workforce, and economic contribution. Of course, those are important dimensions of our sector, but where's the language that centers cultural enrichment, preservation of heritage, youth engagement, and community-based artistic expressions, as well as creative industries and creative placemaking? A more expansive approach that recognizes creative and performing arts, heritage preservation, arts education, traditional arts, and all the varied arts and cultural expressions would better reflect the reality of our creative sector. Arts and culture do more than drive economic impact. We enrich the lives of children, we enhance educational attainment, we strengthen community identity, preserve cultural traditions, and support civic participation. So the question before us is this: how are those values reflected in PCI's new mission? And how will they be reflected in funding priorities moving forward? Stephanie, I'm going to turn it back to you.
So, with the new strategic framework and rebranding, they have announced a host of changes to the existing programs, as well as launching some new programs. This slide reviews what existing programs, or what is happening to the existing programs. All three of the partnership programs, PA Partners for the Arts, arts in education and folk and traditional arts are being discontinued. Within PA Partners is the Creative Sector Flex Fund that is being discontinued. The Creative Entrepreneur Accelerator Grant, as its own program, will continue on. It is going to be centralized and kind of have the program revamped, but run in a more centralized statewide way. So the partners, we will no longer be in part of that. The Preserving Diverse Cultures is also being sunset, as well as AOAP and the corresponding entry track. There are new programs, or a new program that has been announced that has the guidelines up on their website. That is the Creative Asset Program. And I'm going to walk through those guidelines. You can go to the next slide, Haley. So we took a look at the guidelines that have been shared by PA Creative Industries about the Creative Asset Program, as well as the other grant programs that they have rolled out over the last few years. So I know this slide is very detailed and probably hard to read. We will be sharing it out after, but I just want to call attention to some of the specifics of the eligibility and other requirements for these programs. So first, with the Creative Asset Program, the grant size, the budget eligibility, excuse me, of the organizations that will be eligible for this new program is 100,000 to 2 million. And Haley, you can click forward. So that creates a barrier for organizations under 100,000 and over 2 million. 501c3s are eligible, but I want to call attention to the fact that arts programs for non-arts organizations will be ineligible. Additionally, fiscally sponsored organizations are not eligible. That's actually similar across all of the grant programs. Fiscally sponsored groups will not be eligible for any of them. For the Creative Asset Program, it is also a reimbursement grant, which is different than how the Flex Fund has been, though it is supposed to be somewhat general operating funding. You can move forward, Haley. For the other two grant programs, the Creative Communities Initiative and Creative Catalyst, some things I want to call attention to are that they are both project grants, so they're not general operating support. And for the Creative Communities, it is multi-partner, and it has a match requirement, that's normal. And it is, however, within the match, 10% of that match must come from local government, a local government entity. For the Creative Catalyst, that does not have revenue or budget requirements. However, projects for that must show a statewide reach. So we wonder how small organizations who serve neighborhoods or who serve a rural town around the state might show a statewide reach or might have access to this grant program if they cannot demonstrate a statewide reach. So that's an overview of the different eligibility requirements as they currently stand with these grant programs. PA Creative Industries has stated that there will be another grant program coming for the next fiscal year. We do not have guidelines or information on that yet at this time. So just looking at what those grants look like, and then how might the grantees that we currently serve be eligible. For the Creative Asset Program, 60% of current Flex Fund grantees have budgets under 100,000. So you'll not be eligible for the Creative Asset Program. 20% of our current Flex Fund grantees are fiscally sponsored. So you will not be eligible for the Creative Asset Program or for any of the other ones that I just mentioned. And then, as we noted, the other partnership programs are being sunset, so there will be no teaching artist residencies and no folk and traditional arts apprenticeships. Um, and uh, these grants will only be open to 501(c)(3). There are a few other um, status eligible status structures that, for example, one of them is a 501(c)(6), um, that sort of thing, but very specifically no fiscally sponsored organizations. And I should note these are the programs that I walked through is not the entirety of the programs that PA Creative Industries offers, but it is the ones that serve nonprofit organizations, or they are, I should say. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Patty.
Thank you, Stephanie. I see that we have some questions in the chat. I see a raised hand. We're going to go through this presentation, and if time allows, we're going to get back to those questions. We're being mindful of time, and we want to make sure that we can present the entire package first. So as we move into this section, one thing that we want to emphasize is that this is not simply a policy update. What the Cultural Alliance wants to amplify is that this moment that we're in calls for collective action. It's our hope that today we're going to ensure that many voices are heard. Every one of us has a stake in this process. Whether you're an individual artist, a community-based organization, a mid-sized nonprofit, a cultural worker, or an art service organization, these changes coming out of Pennsylvania Creative Industries has the potential to touch all parts of our cultural ecosystem. Our partners across the state, including PAEP and PFP, are also engaged in this work. This is not isolated to one region or one discipline. It's a statewide issue that requires coordinated, thoughtful responses. And let's just be clear, the impact will be felt differently in different communities, but the responsibility to engage belongs to all of us. So whether you are here in Philadelphia, in Center City, in the neighborhoods, or the surrounding counties, we know across the state, rural communities are being impacted, suburban communities are being impacted. We all have a stake in this process. At this point, I'm going to introduce Mia Kang at the Philadelphia Folklore Project, Sarah Kettler Gold, Director of Development and Program Operations at the Pennsylvania Arts Education Partnership, and Eric Cesar Morales of MAB. They're going to share the impacts that they're experiencing. So we're going to start first with Mia. We'll go to Sarah and then Eric. Mia, take it away.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much, Patty and Stephanie, for hosting this. There has been just a tremendous amount of research that GPCA has put into gathering all of these details, and it's really, really important. So I'm grateful for their leadership. My name is Mia Kang. I'm the Executive Director of the Philadelphia Folklore Project. We have served as the regional partner for the Folk and Traditional Arts Partnership Program of PCA, now PCI, which is a structure through which we provide regional support for Philly area folk and traditional artists. For us, these changes are both impacting that partnership structure as well as the apprenticeship program. PCA has historically also offered folk and traditional arts apprenticeships, which are small grants made directly to artists in order to develop a relationship between a master artist and an apprentice to work together. And that apprenticeship structure has been really crucial to passing on the folk and traditional arts of our region and to providing some kind of dedicated support for that kind of intergenerational learning. I wanted to share that from the perspective of folk and traditional arts, right? This shift toward creative industries is really, really significant. I appreciated that Patty and Stephanie shared the definition of creative industries, which began with the notion of producing goods, services, or intellectual property. That does not really speak to the role of folk and traditional arts in our communities, right? Folk and traditional artists are artists whose practices are potent sources of identity, belonging, and community power built on shared history and values. And these practices are invaluable sites for intergenerational exchange, the development of creative agency, and the ability of communities to really shape the world that they want to see. So PFP is working with these regional partners on this advocacy campaign, but we're also talking to our folk and traditional arts partner cohort across the state. We have just this morning submitted a letter to Carl, the executive director of PCI, as well as to the Pennsylvania Council on the Arts members, stating our concerns that this program is effectively cutting all, or the restructuring is effectively cutting all dedicated funding for folk and traditional arts, which we consider to be really, really crucial to the well-being of our artistic and cultural communities across the state. So grateful for all of you being here. There's going to be lots more to engage in to come. I'll drop my email in the chat after this, so anybody with specific questions about the changes to the programs that we have historically administered, or ideas or concerns regarding folk and traditional arts and the impact of these changes on us, feel free to reach out. I will now pass it to Sarah at the Philadelphia Arts and Education Partnership.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Mia, for speaking to the impactful work that you all do. And also thank you to Stephanie and Patty for hosting this event. I'm a little under the weather, so apologies for any sniffling that might happen. So the Philadelphia Arts in Education Partnership, our mission is to promote lifelong learning in and through the arts for pre-K to grade 12 students, seniors, special populations in schools and community sites throughout southeastern Pennsylvania. For nearly 20 years, PAP has been the regional partner with PA Creative Industries through the Arts and Education Partner Program in order to provide arts residencies for our region. So through this program, PAP manages a directory of Pennsylvania artists in education. This includes over 80 teaching artists and organizations which span a variety of disciplines. And these organizations are interested and able in providing hands-on arts engagement activities through residency work. So PAP supports by providing planning and administrative assistance, as well as professional development opportunities, and of course, the regranting of $75,000 of PCI funds every year. On average, PAP has been funding 25 visual and performing arts residencies annually. These take place in K-12 schools, veterans homes, senior centers, and other community sites. Each program year, these residencies affect 1,200 students through direct impact of arts engagement, and there's also an additional component of culminating events which are open to the families and the school-wide communities. So we estimate that an additional 4,000 folks are impacted through residency program activities every year. Thank you for your time, and I'm going to pass it on to Eric.
Hey everyone, so my name is Eric Cesar Morales and I'm with Movimiento, MAP, the Movement of Arts Administrators in Pennsylvania. And I just want to say that if you're angry, you should be. This is entirely upsetting. And what they're doing is essentially preventing organizations like MAP from even existing. MAP started during the pandemic when Dana Payne, the director of the Preserving Diverse Cultures Division, reached out to our founder saying that there is a lack of Latino presence in applications to PCA at the time, and that she wanted to find a way to change it. So our founder was able to get a grant through the Strategies for Success program of the Preserving Diverse Cultures. And Strategies for Success provided multi-year, multi-level support in developing a nonprofit. So you start from the basic level, move all the way up to advanced, and they give you increasing funding as time goes on, along with support, regular mentoring, meetings, understanding of what nonprofit work entails. That program, paired with the Flex Fund that provided general operating support, enabled our organization to get a foothold and really develop. We now organize, connect with 40 arts and arts organizations, Latino-led, across Pennsylvania, and we are continuing to grow. Without this type of careful attention, we wouldn't exist. Numerous other organizations wouldn't exist. This is how grassroots organizations are able to stand up, make themselves known, and get the guidance and support that is necessary to make an impact. And we're still lucky in the Philadelphia area. I gotta emphasize that, because we have resources like the William Penn Foundation that providing additional funding, the Philadelphia Cultural Fund, in order to create the impact grant, which I hope everybody applied to. This is lucky for us, but it's worse in other parts of the state that don't have that type of resource. So this is my last call to action for now, is I'm gonna drop my email in the chat. MAP is working with BIPOC organizations across the state to bring more pressure on PCI, on Carl, on all these individuals who are thinking about bottom lines and pockets and not understanding how arts funds creativity, how arts without restrictions is how we are able to generate the ideas, the narrative building that changes the world. So thank you. I'm going to pass this back to Patty.
Thank you so much, Eric. I also want to thank Mia and Sarah. These programs that you just heard about are being terminated. We will no longer benefit from all the things that they do to contribute to our creative sector, to really enrich our communities, to educate our young people. These are sweeping, detrimental impacts. And it's not just here in Philadelphia. While this conversation is focusing on the Philadelphia region, Philadelphia and the collar counties, we know that in other counties and regions across the state, they're feeling the impact as well, just as Eric was saying. Creative Sector Flex Fund here in Philadelphia, 60% of our organizations will not be eligible. When we talk to our partners in York, 80% of their applicants will no longer be eligible for funding. This is impacting districts, every legislative district across the state, rural areas as well as suburban and urban areas, blue counties as well as red counties. So we have the opportunity here to launch a statewide bipartisan coalition. Now, let's be clear. This has been unfolding and evolving and continues to evolve. Over the next several weeks, we're going to be facing the state budget process. So we shouldn't present this or think that this is a one-time conversation. It's an ongoing effort, and we need your input as the Cultural Alliance continues to refine our messaging, our strategy, and our approach. This is about collective action. This is about all of us coming together with shared tactics. There's a portfolio of tactics available to us: direct outreach to legislators, coordinated letters, district meetings, media engagement, coalition buildings, testimony, and the list goes on. But the most effective strategy will come from shared insights and shared action across the field. The Cultural Alliance can't do this alone. We want to make sure that the work we do reflects your input, reflects how you think we can most effectively engage. So we've got a QR code here. What we hope that you will tell us is, what strategies would you suggest? How do you plan to engage in this effort? What strategies do you think will be most impactful? So what we're asking you to do is to scan the QR code on the screen to input your strategies. We want your voice to help shape what we're going to be doing. So go ahead, scan that QR code, start putting in your strategies, and in a few minutes, we're going to circle back to see some of the strategies that you shared. I'm going to give you, did everybody have enough time to do that? Haley, go back. I just want to make sure everyone has enough time to get their cameras out, scan that QR code, and contribute to this. I see Eric putting up his camera and others putting up their cameras. So let's make sure everybody has the time to do that. All right, we're going to move forward now. So PCI's grant changes are really fueling a growing grassroots response across the Commonwealth. I'm so encouraged that there is this groundswell of concern and action. Conversations are ongoing among the PPA regional partners and among the grantees, and the prevailing sentiment is that these changes risk weakening rather than strengthening Pennsylvania's cultural ecosystem. And so many of us have had conversations with Carl and others at PCI, and they talk about their goals to strengthen the cultural ecosystem. But it's our assessment that as you dive into these changes, they will actually weaken the cultural ecosystem. There's significant concern about the absence of a clear safety net for organizations with budgets under 100,000, and about the shift toward project-based funding for larger institutions without adequate operating support. Many of the regional partners, and this includes the Cultural Alliance, anticipate staff impacts as a result of these structural changes. This is going to be particularly felt in areas of outreach and engagement. There are broader concerns about transparency, community input, and the lack of consultation with members of the Legislative Arts and Culture Caucus. Messaging has been reactive rather than proactive, leaving many organizations uncertain as to how to plan. That's why we're having this session today. In an ideal world, in a normal world, PCI would be making sure that they have this conversation so that all of the grantees, all of the players in our ecosystem really have a clear understanding of what's going on. But it's been up to the Cultural Alliance and organizations like ours across the state to fill the informational gap. So in response, the Cultural Alliance is participating in a statewide coalition being led by Creative Pennsylvania. Creative Pennsylvania is our statewide arts advocacy organization. They used to be known as Citizens for the Arts. Creative Pennsylvania is sort of orchestrating a shared policy platform. We're working with them to develop advocacy strategies and coordinating messages. We're committed to ensuring that the policy position that emerges reflects real sector input. It's evolving as we analyze data and gather feedback from you. So I don't want anyone to think that this is a closed process. The reason why we are having this conversation, the reason why we're preserving the chat, the reason why we are doing the Mentimeter and asking for your suggestions for strategies is because we want to actively gather that information from you. This work is aligned with Arts Advocacy Day and includes a close coordination with regional partners. As Sarah and Eric and Mia presented, we're also coordinating with affinity groups and coalitions. And this is important. We are compiling data to clearly document the impact. Facts, stories, numbers are essential. When we have those conversations with legislators, they want the numbers, they want the data, they want the statistics. So we are collecting that information. Others across the state are doing the same. And when we engage with legislators, yes, we want you to communicate your narratives, to tell your story. But let's make sure that we have the numbers. Let's make sure that we have the stats to back this up. Next slide, please. So we're talking about taking action. How can we engage? First, there's letter writing. We've created a customizable template that you can use to reach out to your local legislators. The link is in the chat. And again, personalize this, make it your own. Talk about your organization, its history, its mission, and its impact, and talk about how support from PCA, PCI has really supported your work. There are others who are putting together template letters as well. Use the letter that most responds to what you want to say. But let's emphasize letter writing. We want to flood the offices of our elected officials with these letters. Secondly, the upcoming March 12th council meeting is an important moment to stay informed and visible. The truth is that the Pennsylvania Council on the Arts has these meetings and they have never had public input, public interaction before. Let's change that. Let's show up for this meeting. We encourage you to tune in and pay attention to how these issues are being presented. And then third, there's the Arts Advocacy Day. That's going to be on March 24th. This is a key opportunity to really show up collectively in Harrisburg. Sign up using the link that's in the chat, and you will hear from Creative PA. We're partnering with Creative PA to offer some, I guess, how-to advocacy training. We want to make sure that you feel comfortable when you go to Harrisburg, when you make an appointment with your rep or your senator, you feel comfortable and you know how to make the most of those moments, because very often you're only going to get 15, 20 minutes. So let's make sure that we leverage that. So we're going to be partnering with others across the state to give some advocacy training so you'll feel comfortable. But the point is, go to Harrisburg, crowd those halls, let our legislators see you in action in Harrisburg. And finally, we're going to encourage one-on-one meetings with your legislators in the district. A lot of them are very, very familiar with the work that you do. So to meet them in the district, to remind them that you are an active change agent in your community, remind them that they have come to your events, and remind them that these changes will be detrimental to the work that you're doing. So call them, schedule a meeting, and share your stories. We can help you with some guidance if you have not done this kind of work before. It's part of what we want to do to help engage everyone. So this is a moment where individual voices and our collective voice can make a real difference. So let's get to the next slide. Let's share some of the strategies that were presented in the Mentimeter. I'm going to ask Stephanie and Jared. Can you please share some? Kelly, can you pull that up? So this is a word cloud, and the largest response is around lobbying. Stephanie and Jared, you want to help me out here?
Yes, a lot of similar things to what you just talked through. Reaching out to local reps, attending Arts Advocacy Day. Someone says raise hell everywhere. One additional is make your audiences aware. So this is as much about, the cultural sector itself, but audiences as well. Jared, anything you would add?
Yeah, I see joint efforts, um, inform legislators. Uh, Another one, demand funds be reinstated. Uh, Sharing across networks, sharing on social media, Instagram posts, amplifying issues to media and to the press. I think these are all really, really great ways to take action.
I agree. The two actions that apparently had the most input were lobbying and attending meetings. Both of those are active tools. This is the way you show up, you show out. Make sure that our voices are heard. Make sure that those who are making decisions understand that we are deeply, deeply engaged in this process. So before we close, I want to remind folks, if we can go to the next slide. I want to remind folks that we highlighted two important dates before we wrap up. First, there is the Council on the Arts meeting. It's virtual. It's on March 12th. Mark your calendars. We'll have information for you in the chat about how you can participate in that. Arts Advocacy Day is Tuesday, March 24th. It's in Harrisburg. That meeting is organized by the Arts and Culture Caucus. We partner with Creative Pennsylvania to make sure that that is an engaging, proactive moment. So, as I said, use the link in the chat. Let Creative PA know that you're coming. They will send you back a packet. They will make sure that if you want to participate in that lobbying training, you get that. They will also make sure that you have the full schedule for the day. It starts with a breakfast. Then there's time for you to visit your elected officials. There will be a 3:00 press event, and then you have more time. So it's a full day. We hope that you will commit to participating in that day. We've got to show up. We've got to show by our numbers that we really care about this. So I'm going to close and go to the next slide. There have been a couple of questions in the chat. There have been a couple of raised hands. Rachel Zimmerman, I saw you raise your hand. I want to ask if you still have a question. Rachel?
No, thank you.
Okay. All right. So I want to briefly reflect on the tactics that we suggested. Direct outreach to legislators, coordinated storytelling, district meetings, shared data, coalition building, media engagement. These are all very, very powerful tools. You've shared your concerns. I know so many of you have already gotten active. We applaud that. We encourage that. What we are seeing and what we're hearing back from our elected officials is that they are responding to this grassroots movement. They are receiving the phone calls. They're receiving the requests for appointments, and they're hearing what has to be said. We need to do more of that, even as the Cultural Alliance, Creative PA, our partners across the state are having these conversations and putting together the policy strategies. This is an instance where we all have a role, and I encourage everyone to be actively engaged. We also require follow through. So whether that means sending a letter this week or signing up for Arts Advocacy Day, scheduling a meeting with your rep, or encouraging your board and your community to engage, and that's really important. It is important for not only our organizations, but our audiences to speak up on our behalf. Every step matters. So let's stay connected. Let's provide updates and tools and next steps as we continue to evolve. As I said, we're preserving the chat. We have the links here. Let's move from conversation to coordinated action. Let's make this happen. I see, looks like Terry Fox, but it looks like Jonathan Stein. Jonathan?
Jonathan, you're muted.
This is really terrific. Thank you, Stephanie and Patty, for a really terrific, informative get together and lighting a fire under all of us to do work. Two things. To do your public comment to the council, they moved their public meeting from March 12th, the one you had in your slide, to March 26th. So when you email, and you must email ahead of time, Laura Klein, LAURAKLINE at pa.gov, it will be to reserve your 2 minutes for public comment before the entire Pennsylvania Council of the Arts for March 26th at 9 a.m. And as Patty aptly noted, this public comment provision, we have been told by a state legislator who's on the council, has never been used by the public. So if 20, 40, 60, 80 of you sign up, it will be an amazing message to this council of the complaints and protests that people have across the state. One final thing, state legislators are great, but remember the Pennsylvania Council is part, and Blisky and his operation is part of the executive branch of state government. The head of that branch is Governor Josh Shapiro. All the lay appointees of the council are his appointees. So he is legally and politically accountable for every one of these program eliminations. Bottom line, you need to get your state legislators to talk to Josh Shapiro, and you need to, as we have already done, write to Governor Josh Shapiro, and maybe the same template letter you're sending to state legislators, but directly to the governor. He has no art staff, which is itself a problem. So his secretary for policy and planning, Akbar Hossein, and his deputy secretary for policy and planning, Catherine Paisley, are his, quote, staff for the arts. So letters to the governor should be directed to A. Hossein at pa.gov and K. Paisley at pa.gov. And I'll try to put this into the chat if I can do that right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan, for that important update. And yes, it is critical for us to engage the council and to elevate this message to the governor's office. I see another question or comment coming from Lewis.
Thank you so much. And I have my helper here. This has really been great. I put in the chat the documentation that I brought when I met with my state legislature's aide. One other thing that I did not include that I think is important is I gave them a breakdown over the last few years of how our grant money was spent. And 100% of the grant money remained in our county to local businesses, local support vendors, local artists. Nothing went out of the county. I also pointed out within Bucks County, there'll be no organization that currently has received flex funding that would be eligible under the new terms and conditions. So these monies would no longer be serving the community and invested in the community.
That's a very important point, but that's also a really good model. As we have these conversations with these elected officials, let's talk about how we spend the money that we're granted. There is a thread of conversation going on that somehow smaller organizations have less impact. Organizations with budgets under 100,000 are depending on state funding to keep them open, sort of as a crutch. We want to really disabuse our elected officials about these notions. We know that organizations, cultural organizations embedded in our communities, organizations that reflect our communities, organizations that reflect not only our cultural heritage, but our demographics, are the lifeblood of our cultural ecosystem. And these policies are somehow minimizing the impact and the contributions of these organizations. So let's make sure that there is an understanding of the contribution, the impact, and Louis, as you were saying, how the money is spent. So as you put together those letters, as you're having the conversations, put together your talking points to really reflect all of that important information. Any other comments before we close out?
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, we promised you that we would only take an hour. We got through a lot of information. I know a lot of you are looking for the chart that Stephanie provided. It's very detailed. We will make sure you have that, not only through the links on this chat, but also on our website. The work that the Cultural Alliance does can only happen if you support us, if you work with us, and we are so proud to be that organization in the greater Philadelphia area that lifts up the voice of our creative sector, that represents our impact. And we cannot do this without you. Thank you so much for participating today. Hopefully, I'm going to see you in Harrisburg. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.